Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a truly bizarre corporate trend. You know, for years, we've been totally accustomed to companies shouting from the rooftops about their environmental initiatives, aggressively marketing every single eco-friendly step they take. But right now, an entirely different, almost counterintuitive phenomenon is quietly taking over the corporate world. We're seeing major, heavy-emitting companies doing the actual hard work of adopting climate goals, but then adopting a deliberate, absolute radio silence approach to those exact same goals. They're actively choosing to hide their positive environmental targets from the public. It's a strategy born entirely out of fear, and it has massive implications for transparency, investors, and the global climate effort as a whole.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. First, the rise of greenhushing. Second, the corporate fear driving it. Third, greenhushing versus greenwashing. Fourth, the domino effect of risks. And finally, the boardroom wake-up call. Starting with Section 1, the rise of greenhushing, or the sound of corporate silence. To really get why this matters ahead of major summits like COP27, we've got to look at the sheer scale of the issue. This isn't just a handful of overly cautious PR teams. We can look at a major report from the carbon finance consultancy South Pole. They surveyed over 1,200 self-professed heavy-emitting companies across 12 different countries, and the results are pretty shocking. A full 25%, literally 1 in 4 of these major corporations, are actively keeping quiet about their climate goals. To be super clear, these companies generally have set net zero targets. They've done the math, they have the plans in place, but they are purposely refusing to publicize them, and they have absolutely zero plans to do so. So what does this actually look like in practice? Well, that brings us to our core definition, greenhushing. It's exactly what it sounds like. It happens when companies take deliberate steps to stay quiet about their climate strategies, either through strict avoidance or flat-out refusal to talk about it. If an investor or a journalist asks about their climate goals, they just decline to answer. If nobody asks, they volunteer absolutely nothing. The term itself was actually first coined back in the late 2000s, but it hovered totally under the radar until this recent massive spike in corporate adoption. Essentially, it's doing the hard work, but hiding the evidence. Think about the huge brands you buy from every single day. There's a really high chance some of them are doing this exact thing right now.
Which brings us to Section 2, corporate fear. Why stay silent?
So the crucial point is, why? Why would a company successfully establish a complex net zero target and then flat out refuse to take public credit for it? Well, the answer lies entirely in the psychology of the modern boardroom. It's a really intense corporate anxiety loop. According to the data, companies greenhush for 2 primary reasons. First, the fear of falling short. They are absolutely terrified that if they announce a strict science-based target and miss it by even a tiny fraction, the public backlash is going to be severe. Second, they have a massive fear of being accused of greenwashing, the act of persuading stakeholders that you're more eco-friendly than you actually are. They figure that even if they are super confident in their goals, bragging about them might expose something they are unknowingly leaving out. For them, there's little perceived upside and immense reputational risk in being open.
Let's move into Section 3, greenhushing versus greenwashing. It's a complicated relationship.
To truly grasp the danger here, we need to untangle these 2 totally different strategies. Greenwashing, that's a megaphone strategy. It's an active exaggeration to win you over. Think of a fast fashion brand launching a massive PR campaign for a tiny, insignificant, eco-friendly clothing line, while their main factories are still polluting heavily. Greenhushing, on the other hand, is the exact opposite. It's the mute button. It's the total withholding of strategy just to avoid any public scrutiny whatsoever. Imagine a major tech manufacturer completely transitioning their data centers to renewable energy, but bearing the data so environmental watchdogs can't nitpick their timelines. Greenhushing is often used as a direct defense mechanism to avoid those very accusations of greenwashing, just attempting to fly completely under the radar. But here is the fascinating paradox that experts are pointing out. Some critics actually argue that greenhushing is just a different flavor of greenwashing. Think about it for a second. If a company claims to be acting in the interests of the environment but provides absolutely no public benchmark, no data, and no details, how is the public supposed to verify their impact? For a lot of watchdogs, this total lack of transparency isn't a defense against greenwashing at all. It's proof that the organization is already doing it, deliberately hiding their true climate impacts in the shadows. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the human warning behind all that data.
Renat Huberger, the CEO of South Pole, points out that sustainability-minded businesses backing up their targets with actual science is absolutely the right approach. But his massive concern, it's the complete lack of credibility that silence brings. If a quarter of heavy-emitting companies today won't come forward with details on what makes their targets credible, this fear-based trend of greenhushing could be spreading rapidly, and that threatens global transparency right when we literally need it the most.
That takes us to Section 4, the domino effect of risks, the actual cost of silence. Let's move ahead and see how this builds, because while corporate boards might think keeping their mouths shut is the safest bet, avoidance actually creates a really dangerous chain reaction. Step 1. Greenhushing fundamentally puts a company at odds with its own ESG, environmental, social, and governance goals, which absolutely demand transparency. Step 2. We know that these ESG goals are a primary motivator for modern investors. We're talking trillions of dollars tied directly to these metrics today. Step 3. Therefore, this silence directly risks alienating the exact stakeholders and capital that these companies rely on to survive. In a corporate world that's more concerned with climate change than ever, trying to hide your data just creates a massive breach of trust.
Finally, Section 5, the boardroom wake-up call, taking accountability. So how do companies actually disclose their climate goals without succumbing to all this reputational risk? Well, the solution sits squarely in the boardroom. Boards have got to adopt a practical framework to navigate out of this fear cycle. First, treat this growing trend as a massive wake-up call. You can no longer afford to be passively ignorant of how your environmental data is being handled. Second, truly understand exactly what greenhushing means for your organization. And third, mandate a crystal-clear safe harbor reporting strategy. This means releasing raw data tied directly to established scientific frameworks, rather than relying on flashy PR spin or marketing teams to filter the narrative. Transparency just has to be a core governance directive, ensuring your milestones are brought into the light accurately and without exaggeration. That is how you avoid reputational risk while still maintaining accountability.
Which leaves us with this final, vital question to reflect on. As we navigate an era where environmental responsibility is no longer optional, transparency is really the only true currency of trust we have. Hiding your milestones out of fear doesn't protect your reputation, it actively erodes it. So look closely at the data, demand clarity, and ask yourself, is your organization truly green, or are they just greenhushing? Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to keep questioning the silence.